but I was part of the investigation, the charging, the trying, and the conviction of Dr. Kenneth Bernard Schade, who victimized some large number of boys 11 to 14 years old who were members of the Singing Boys of Pennsylvania over the course of about 2 decades or so. He had access to approximately 3,000 boys over those 2 decades, and I represented one of his primary victims, and I myself was a victim. My parents, they flew to St. Louis and literally took me out of the choir, like physically took me out of the choir. And let me tell you, being liberated, that is a powerful feeling. Being oppressed and then being liberated is never something, you do not forget that. I will never forget that. Every pixel of that rescue is burned into my memory. There was a boarding school there too. I wasn't in the boarding school or the summer camp or whatever it was, but yeah, there was actually one of those too. One of the victims called me. I got several phone calls after it was publicized that I was representing victims, that I was a victim, and that I wanted to talk to people. I got several phone calls. One person was taken to a place in Maine, or kind of a retreat in Maine, was abused, and upon escaping from the abuse, ran to Dr. Kenneth Bernard Schade, who returned them to the abuser. Men who are assaulted like that, not only do they remember what happened while they were conscious. I didn't mention that he was a drugger. He would drug your food. You would feel sick during a meal, usually dinner, and then the choir nurse would take you to your room and set you down and put you to bed, and then the choir director would come later and check on you. And read into that. That's what I mean. So what the people remember stays with them. You don't forget it. It's burned into your mind. Men who are victims carry it with them through their life. Sometimes people can even identify just by their sort of second-class citizen behavior that they are learned helplessness and vulnerable. So men who are victims of these things, many of them won't tell their wives, won't tell their parents, won't tell their priest, won't tell their psychologist, because attitudes change. Suddenly this man is not masculine anymore because he has been the victim of something not masculine. It taints a person for their entire life. A person who is a victim of this kind of assault, a man especially, from my experience, again, not taking anything away from any other gender or person, but the boys that I knew, this was a boys' choir, so I can only speak to boys. The boys and men that I knew are affected for their lifetimes. None of them are 100% healthy, and several of them have died over the years of self-inflicted, you get it. So, to finish the story, because it has an ending. It's not necessarily that negative of an ending. And certainly people were hurt over the years. People died. Innocent people died. There's no 11-year-old child that deserved this. They're always innocent. There's like if you go on the ICE video, people are like, well, the immigrants deserved it because they did the illegal thing. Well, I can say confidently that no 11-year-old deserves what happened to me. But to finish the story, another victim contacted me, and together we approached the Northampton County District Attorney's Office. The Northampton County District Attorney had another assistant attorney who specialized in these kinds of cases. And she put us in contact with the FBI. And we both got interviewed by the FBI. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. I'll get through it. I want you to know, 2 FBI agents drove through a blizzard, 9 hours, to interview my client, to make sure they got his story right, got the whole story, and could continue their investigation without delay. They're not all bad, okay? Eventually, the Pennsylvania State Police would find 2 victims who had active cases. In other words, the statute of limitations had not expired, the evidence was good, the incidents happened within their jurisdiction, etc. One reason this was difficult was because this was a travel inquiry. Hey, guess what? It was a travel inquiry on purpose, because traveling meant it was harder to bring charges against people. My parents did not bring charges against the man because, we would have had to fly to Missouri. No charges for what happened to me. No civil suit. I skipped a part. I skipped the part where, when I first joined the choir, within a few weeks, I witnessed the man beat one of the boys against a grand piano, a baby grand piano, on the second floor, far left room, the northwestmost room of an old schoolhouse building in Stockerton, Pennsylvania. It has since been converted into apartments. I visit that building once in a while, and I sit outside and I think. He beat a boy, Michael. And Michael, if you see this, I love you. Michael was beaten up against a piano for being normal 11-year-old's insubordinate. It broke his ribs. He showed us the black and blue bruise across his chest. His parents blamed him. My parents kept me in the choir, but simply told the director not to beat me. They put Michael back in the choir, and Michael was in the choir with me for the next 9 months, till I left. And I don't know when he got out. I did meet Michael later, and I can tell you that Michael is also broken like the rest of us, in his own way. I don't mean it as an insult. I just mean as a truth. On to the happy ending. I got a phone call sometime in 2015, 2014, I think it was. The date doesn't matter. You can go back and see the records. It's in the unified judicial system in the Pennsylvania court system. The search for Kenneth Bernard Schade, or Bernard Kenneth Schade, because at one point they got his name backwards. And search it for news. You'll find all the news articles too. I got a call from the Pennsylvania State Police that they had found 2 active cases that they could bring against him, and they had brought them, and he had been arrested. I was driving. I couldn't drive anymore. I had to pull over to the side of the road because I burst into tears. I bawled my eyes out for about 5 minutes on the phone, profusely thanking the trooper for what he had done for us, knowing that it was the beginning of the end for this man. I would work with was it Carbon County? No. Monroe County. Monroe County District Attorney's Office. I would attend his hearings. He pled guilty to 2 counts of assault and 2 counts of CSAM. If you don't know what CSAM is, you got to look it up. I can't say it out loud here. They had found 1,101 bits of material, read into it, in 2 suitcases in his house after he had called his neighbor and asked her to remove the 2 suitcases and hide them in the attic so that the officers would not find it during their investigation. So he pled guilty to the assaults and 1 each for the suitcase instead of 1,101. He tried to withdraw his guilty plea. The guilty plea was not withdrawn, and we had a sentencing hearing. And I went to the sentencing hearing in Monroe County, and you need to hear this. At his sentencing hearing, something amazing happened, but not in a good way. Don't get me wrong, there's still a happy ending here. He still goes to jail for a very long time, okay? At the sentencing hearing, one half of the courtroom was seated with his supporters, and the other half of the courtroom was seated with his detractors, with his victims. The two victims in the case had written letters. They did not want to appear. They did not want to speak. They did not want to be seen publicly. A third victim, my client, Richard, had written a letter as well. But I want you to know that my side was empty. There were the two victims' letters, yes. There was Richard's letter, yes. There was my testimony, yes. 4. There were dozens on his side. They spoke about how wonderful of a musician he was, how much he did for the community, how much joy and music he brought to these boys' lives and the lives of their families and the lives of the communities and the world. How tragic it would be if he went to jail for a long time for such a simple mistake, they said. The judge didn't comment. The judge just listened. Well, first the judge read the 3 letters from the victims. Then the judge asked me to speak. I said that the fact that he was a wonderful music director and brought such joy to people's lives made it worse, not better. He used his talents to gain access to his victims, not used his talents to improve the lives of people. I said more words, but that was the gist of it. The judge spoke, and she agreed. She said, horrific case. Definitely, his talents gave him access to these boys, these victims, and that makes it worse, not better. So the judge sentenced him to 6 to 10 years in Monroe County Correctional Facilities. You'd think that he would get out early for good behavior. He did not. He showed no remorse, no regret, took no responsibility. I don't mean passively. I mean he actively opposed taking responsibility, showing remorse, etc. He would serve the entire 10 years in prison. There's more. This is him. This is the face of my abuser. This is Dr. Kenneth Bernard Schade. I have physically touched this man, and he has physically touched me. After being released from a 10-year prison term, an 85-year-old music director has been told in no uncertain terms that he is not welcome in any church in the Diocese of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. On June 10th, Bishop of Bethlehem Kevin Nichols sent a pastoral directive to all of the more than 50 congregations in the diocese, instructing them to notify Bernard Kenneth Schade in writing that he is not permitted, licensed, or privileged to be upon your parish church's property, or to enter or remain in any of the parish buildings or structures. Schade is also known by the name Ken Werner, or Werner. I am heartbroken to be sending you this letter, says Kevin D. Nichols, Bishop. A pastoral direction from your bishop. This pastoral direction has been made necessary by the release of Bernard Kenneth Schade from prison. Mr. Schade, who has been judicially designated as an offender, read into it, presented himself to at least 2 different parishes within the Diocese of Bethlehem. He did for several years serve as the choir director of Christ Church, Stroudsburg, in addition to founding the Singing Boys of Pennsylvania. He was arrested for the 1996 assault of one choir member. I thought it was 2. I still think it was 2. In January 2015, after guilty pleas to counts of assault and CSAM, and being required to register, he was imprisoned. He was released. There's his address. This is not private information. By Megan's law, he must report himself. On Pentecost, Mr. Schade presented himself for the purposes of attending worship services at the Cathedral Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem. When his identity was determined, he was instructed to leave the premises and not return. Again, on June 9th, he presented himself to attend worships at St. Stephen's Pro-Cathedral. I don't know where that one is. He arrived late and left soon after the worship services concluded. We expect that he may present himself to other dioceses. I certainly hope that as Christians we always seek reconciliation and are prepared to forgive one another's transgressions. However, Mr. Schade has made absolutely clear that he lacks insight into the severity of his crimes, that he blames the victim, and demonstrates a complete lack of contrition. Mr. Shade's presence is not safe and consistent with church policies. You shall send a notice, you shall provide a copy of correspondence, you shall provide a copy of Megan's Law reports, and should he appear, he shall be asked to leave. Shall he refuse to do so, law enforcement should be involved. These actions are not optional. And while I thank you, Kevin Nichols, also know that we are well aware that you were aware of this far before 2024. But thank you. Schade was declared a violent predator. He was ordered to register as such for the rest of his life. He filed unsuccessful appeals throughout his incarceration. If you find yourself in any situation that rhymes with this in any way, you are welcome and encouraged to contact me and talk, because us victims need support for the rest of our lives, especially the ones that were harmed more severely than the beating that I got. He, as far as I know, is still alive. I think I have a Google alert on him, and when he dies, I will celebrate. It's a Pyrrhic victory. My friends are dead, some of them. The rest of them are severely injured. None of them will ever be the same. None of them will have had a normal childhood or a normal adulthood. So, that's my story that I've never told in full before to you. And thank you for listening. It's all I could really ever ask.